Welcome, my friends, to a new episode of Frameworks. Well, in this episode, we're going to talk about the process approach. In the previous episodes, we talked about two frameworks. We talked about the speaker framework, and then we talked about the product approach. Now, for this episode, we're going to cover the process approach. Well, actually, like any other framework, the process approach starts with a leading. And as we always say, this stage is for attracting your students' attention by getting them involved in the topic of the lesson. Now, in order to give you a good example of how you can run leading for the process approach, I had a group of candidates on a TEFL course. And then I thought to myself, I wanted them to see the process approach in action. So I started thinking of the kind of writing lessons they may need as teachers on this course. And then I said self-reflection. Because again, on courses like CELTERM, TEFL, CERTIS, or you name it, candidates are supposed to write a kind of a self-reflection after every teaching practice. And sometimes those self-reflection sheets don't come in the way that we want. Like, we want balanced self-reflection, we want them detailed, we want them to focus on the important things that happen in a lesson. And for that purpose, I said, okay, let's teach them how they can write a self-reflection and at the same time reflect later on a process approach. So let's see how I ran leading for my self-reflection lesson. Let's go. Now, let me talk to you about self-reflection, right? And the question is, why do you think self-reflection is important? Why do we ask you to write a self-reflection after you teach? Why do we do this? Okay, so awareness, wonderful. Other ideas? Oh, okay, so you're giving feedback to yourself. That's what you mean? Okay, right, yes? Wonderful. Okay, very good. What else? To compare.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe you see if you read the comments of your tutor on the videos
Okay. So to see whether you were able to work on the previous comments that you received. Okay, wonderful. That's good. Right. And also let me add something to the idea of writing a self-reflection. In reality, what makes you develop is actually reflecting on your lessons. So when you deliver a lesson somewhere, and then after that, you start thinking about what you've done, and then you say something like, I'm not very happy with my lesson. I guess I need to work on it and improve it. This is what makes us better in the future. Yeah, I mean, as long as you're thinking about your lessons, you keep developing. Now, as we saw in the previous video, I got my candidates interested in the topic by asking them about the importance of the self-reflection, and then the discussion went on. Now, after the leading, the following stage is strange. We call it the first draft. And the reason why I say strange, because a lot of the students actually get surprised when you start doing the second stage with them. Why? Because actually in the second stage, which is called the first draft, you ask your students to write without teaching them anything about the genre. Like nothing. You didn't give them ideas, you didn't give them language, nothing. And then you ask them to write. Someone might say, Shadi, why would a teacher do something like that? Well, the reason behind this is that sometimes students, are held back by grammar rules, writing conventions, punctuation, coherence, cohesion, other stuff. And they keep thinking about all these areas, and then they become worried, and then because they become worried, they become unable to produce. And this is the advantage of the first draft. How? It's because they don't need to think about all this. You just tell them to write. And when they say, how should we write it? You say, do whatever you want. Now, do you need it to be organized in a specific way? And then you say, again, whatever you want. Do anything you want, just write the ideas you have in your head. And this is the beauty of it. So no worries, no stress, no anxiety. And also you can see from what they produce how much they know about the genre. So let's see how I did this with my candidates. Let's go. Right. So what I want you to do right now, I want you to think about the last teach and practice you've delivered. What was it? Was it teach and practice number?
6.
Okay, right, lovely jubbly. So I want you to think about this very last teach and practice. And no. Even if it brings back bad memories, don't worry. Now, what I want you to do What I want you to do is to start writing your self-reflection now. Okay? Yes. But without going back to anything else, just in 10 minutes, I want you to write your self-reflection. Go on. No. Write your self-reflection for yourself. Okay? The last one, just put it away and write from your mind. Okay? On an empty sheet of paper. Yes? Whatever you want. Just go on. Okay, I'll give you 10 minutes to finish this. As you saw it, I asked them to write. I didn't teach them anything. Now, after they finish writing, here comes my time. It is the teacher's time. It is the time when you decide to give them input now. It is the genre analysis stage. And in the genre analysis stage, you teach your candidates about the genre. You tell them about the features of the genre. You give them the ideas and the language they need. And again, as many candidates and many students and many teachers ask, do we have to cover everything in the genre analysis stage? And I'd say it's impossible. And we will never advise you to do the impossible because this is undoable. You cannot teach everything about writing in the genre analysis stage. You have to prioritize. Now, let's look at the coming stage, my genre analysis stage in the self-reflection lesson, and see what I prioritized. Let's go. Have you finished writing your self-reflection? Yes. Okay, now, what I want you to do is to think about what your character is in terms of writing self-reflection. What do I mean by this? We have here 4 different characters. Every character will write a self-reflection in a different way. I want you to read about these 4 characters carefully and choose which one you are, depending on what you have just produced. Okay? Well, sometimes you can be a mixture of 2 characters. Is it easy, let's do it? Let's do that. Right. What I want you to do, I want you to discuss with your partner, okay? Tell your partner about who you are. Maybe you're one of them, maybe you're not. Maybe one of them, maybe you're a mixture of all. Okay, so both of you together, both of you here, together. Can you take that seat, work together, and all of you. Right, my friends. So, now let's start. So, tell me about your friend. Which character your friend is? Yes? Oh, really? Why?
When she's doing something wrong and she got some negative feedback, she is so much.
She feels so bad.
She feels so bad.
But does she write so badly about herself before receiving the feedback?
I wrote everything.
So you always...
her mistakes and write them, but she never...
But she doesn't mention anything good.
No, I mentioned both of them.
Sorry? Okay. So about to... Yeah. Okay. Right. So you're usually angry after your lessons and you're not happy.
I wrote everything.
Okay.
So I'm not understanding.
Good. So tell me more about your friend. What else?
Well, actually, we both agreed that none of us are
Okay, so not any one of these four.
Maybe like it's different because on some TVs you could lean. Yes, so you could lean on Za'ab al-Aba, and on another TV you would lean on the possessive bed. You know, it varies from one TV to another, but most of the time, right, we try and keep cool, right? Have a capital, write what's good, write what's bad, and just think of it as trial and error, trying to improve. So that's what I do most of the time, and I believe that's what we do as well.
Wonderful. Okay, so one last comment about one of your friends during the discussion. Yes?
My friend is between the first one and the third one. She probably like group replying
Okay.
as well. Sometimes she focus on important points.
Okay. So she's between Saeed TEFL and Fawzi TEFL, right? You were Abdul Kader in second degree. Okay, wonderful. Right, so now my friends, after you have read about these four characters, let's agree that we don't want you to be any of these characters when you're writing your self-reflection. Okay? So, what we want you to do, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going actually to let you think about this. What are the characteristics of a good self-reflection? And I want you to discuss this now in groups. So try to find the characteristics of a good self-reflection. So let's have the three of you together and the three of you here and join your friends. Four of you, let's have four. Right. So now I will give you this handout where you have 5 main characteristics of a good self-reflection. I want you to go through the points carefully and see, were you able to cover all these points in your discussion when you were talking together? Okay. Right? So read them first and then discuss again with your partner. Same groups. So, any questions on these 5 points, something that is not clear, you can ask. Or all the characteristics are. Second one. A detailed evaluation rather than just one line for each section. So what is confusing about this one?
I know, I'm sorry.
The third one. You can pick out what really matters, unlike, okay, yes, this is supposed to be, I'm supposed to be changing this one, irrelevant iris, that's Fawzia's ticket, or Fawzia's ticket. Okay. So, unlike Fawzia's ticket. These are the alternates. The last one, that you don't just write what you think the tutor wants to hear. Like, in your self-reflection, yeah, you need to be honest with yourself. You're not just trying to please Shani or Rami. Yeah, I mean, it's just actually write what you feel about your lesson. Maybe, but sometimes it happens. Maybe we feel good about something that's not very good for habit. Right? But, right, because that shows how much you developed in terms of self-reflection. Okay? Other questions? Easy, lemons, so clear this one? Now, as you saw, I prioritized the main features of my genre, the features of a good self-reflection. And I did this through two handouts. Handouts number one, they read about 4 characters and they decide who they are in the light of what they have produced in the first draft. And after that, I asked them to come up with a list together of the features of a good self-reflection. And then I gave them another handout as feedback. Now, this was my genre analysis stage. Someone might say, Shadi, but you didn't focus on language. I didn't need to focus on language here because they were teachers. I didn't need to do that. But actually, with your students, you might include language, of course. You think about the language they may need, and then here you are. Right. Now, after the genre analysis stage, we come to another stage, which is editing. And we call it editing, we don't call it writing. Someone may say, why you don't call it writing? Well, we don't call it writing because simply students are not writing for the first time. They will just go to the first draft they produce at the very beginning of the session and they're going to edit it. They're going to edit it in the light of what they learned in the genre analysis stage. So let's see how I did that. Let's go. Okay, now what I want you to do, my friends, right now, I'm going to give you 10 minutes, from 10 to 15, let's see, to edit your first self-reflection. Remember the self-reflection you wrote at the very beginning of the session?
Yes.
I want you to go back to it, thinking about those 5 characteristics, adapt it so it comes out a good self-reflection. Let's do that. How much time do you have? 10 to 15. Okay. Are you going to write or adapt? Adapt. Okay. Go on. As you saw, my candidates now edited the version that they produced at the very beginning of the session. And now it is time for feedback. Now I decided that my content feedback would be student-centered. And I prepared the sheet you see now so that my candidates can use it in analyzing and checking their friends' writing. Now let's go and see what I did. Okay, right, my friends. So now it is time to check your writing. So what I'm going to do is, first I want you to exchange your self-reflection with your partner next to you. So together, here. Exchange with the lady. Now, how are you going to check your friend's self-reflection? You have a chart here with how many criteria? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 criteria. Read your friend's self-reflection and tick the criterion your friend meets. So whatever a criterion is set, just tick it. Okay? Good. Have you ticked the chart you have? Now please, discuss with your partner why you ticked each box and why some boxes are not ticked. Okay? Go on. Work together. As you saw in the previous video, so candidates were checking each other's writing using the chart I gave them, where they have the criteria, where they have the characteristics of a good self-reflection, and all what they needed to do is to tick in there. Now let's move to the last kind of feedback, which is language feedback. And let's see in the following video what I did with my candidates. Let's go. So if you gave it back to your friends, get it back. Okay. And now we have G and V and B. G is for grammar and V is for vocabulary and P is for punctuation. Now I want you to read your friend's self-reflection. If you see a grammar mistake, don't fix it. Don't correct it, just write. If there is a vocabulary mistake, just write. If there is a problem with punctuation, just write. Go on. Above it, yeah. Above it, under it, whatever you want, yeah. Now, as you saw in the video, I used, again, student-centered language feedback by giving my candidates some correction codes to use and to put their notes on their friend's writing, and then they can check together and explain to each other what they mean by the codes they put on the phrases and sentences, etc. Right, so this was a kind of student-centered language feedback. Then if I want to go further with this, of course, I will take their self-reflection back home and I'm going to put my comments on the grammar and vocabulary and all that stuff and give them either personalized feedback or maybe collective feedback depending on my time. So this was the process approach. In the coming episode, we're going to see the process approach in course books. So thank you, my friends, and see you again in another episode. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Bye-bye.